Hello and welcome to Leadership PRN. This is the Dalhousie Faculty of Medicine's podcast for leaders both new and established. My name is Dr. Lara Hazelton. I work in faculty development in the CPD office of the Faculty of Medicine. Today I'm very pleased to have with me Lorie Campbell. Hi, Lorie.
Hi, Lara.
It's good to see you. I've met you in various contexts. You've done some programming for us in faculty development around leadership. Can you tell our audience a little bit about yourself and your work with medical leaders?
Sure. Well, I'm an executive coach and facilitator with the medical affairs portfolio at Nova Scotia Health. And I've been with the organization for about 25 years now. And in that time, I've moved through various roles within the organization. I started my career in human resources, and from there I moved into management, and then I became a certified coach after that, and I've been working in the leadership development field for the past decade. I began this work because I noticed that there was a gap in the organization to support physicians as they transitioned into leadership roles. At first, they were coming to me for advice and guidance and consultation, and because of my background, I was happy to help. But I quickly realized that leaders didn't really have any leadership skills. They hadn't gone to leadership school, if you will. They hadn't really done the training. And what was happening was they were trying to figure out the role and learn the skills on the job. And so this led me to seek out education for myself, to become a coach so that I could better support our physicians. And now I work with physicians all across the province. So I work with the physician leader, I work with their teams to really help them create the skills and the mindset to excel at leadership. And so I do this work either through one-to-one coaching or through tailored programming and facilitation. And oftentimes I'll work with a physician leader and then they'll bring me into their team because maybe there's some team dynamics or the team is doing well, but they really want to be even more high performing. And so I'll come in and work with the team. And what I find about this work is that it's really great to sustain change. So sustain behavioral change or emotional change. Because it really stays with the leader and the team long after the coaching is finished.
So you said about leaders not necessarily having the skills or training. That it's interesting. One of the things that we've talked about on this podcast is educating residents and medical students about leadership before they even end up becoming leaders. I don't know if you have any thoughts about when a good time is, because as you say, they come to the job, they may not already be leaders. And any thoughts about how we can maybe introduce some of that training even earlier?
Yeah, I mean, my advice is to start it early as you can, because you're right. What happens a lot of times is physicians come into these roles and they quite often feel unprepared. And, I think undergrad school is where it really needs to start. But certainly within medical training, skills around communication, having difficult conversations, how to navigate the team dynamics and the politics within the teams themselves, let alone the larger organization. So, I think what happens is people feel unprepared to navigate those dynamic relationships and personalities. And, sometimes we feel like people are like us until we realize they're not like us. And we find ourselves in situations where we don't know how to deal with people who aren't like us. So I think, we call it the soft skills, but they're really not soft because they are the foundation of being able to work with people in organizations. So I think the earlier, the better to get that sort of training.
I think sometimes people who are in medicine or maybe just generally assume that some people are naturally leaders or are born leaders, and they don't think of it as skills that necessarily need to be developed.
Yeah. I think some people have a natural affinity to leadership, but I'm not really a big believer that leaders are born. I think they are made. And the more you know about yourself and understand who you are and, what your strengths are, what your limitations are, what your beliefs are, your values, the more you know about that and what makes up your interior leadership landscape, the more you're going to be able to influence people and motivate people and engage people. And so I think what often gets missed in leadership training is that leading self piece, that taking that inner look at who we are. And I think if people don't understand that, it's going to be really difficult to be able to lead others. Lara, you've heard me say this before, leaders bring the weather. Leaders bring the weather because when they walk into a room, the energy, the tone, the mood, it's palpable. And that energy is either going to be very positive or it's going to be negative. And a lot of leaders have no idea what the weather is that they bring. And so I would say it's your job to go find out.
That's an interesting point. One of the things when I'm talking to learners about leadership is that often the person in the kind of higher status position, the leader, doesn't necessarily recognize the differences in status, doesn't, as you say, recognize the weather they bring, doesn't recognize the influence that they're having, whereas everyone else in the room is very conscious of the leader's role and influence. I don't know if that's what you've kind of noticed as well, or...
Mm-hmm, yeah, that's why getting feedback is so important. And people are terrified of getting feedback, I will say. But, it really is a gift. And I think if you're willing to be open and vulnerable to what people have to tell you, it's the biggest gift you can get as a leader. Because, again, we often don't know the impact. Our intention might be, to do one thing, but we can't always know the impact we have on our team and the folks around us. And so feedback is so important. So I would recommend that if you don't know, what the impact is you're having around people, ask people. Find out. And don't be defensive when you hear the answer. You may not like it, but it's an opportunity to make a change. And you get to have that choice, what you do with that.
I'm thinking about one thing I might mention to our listeners is that I've actually met with you in the past for coaching sessions. It's been a while. I'm sitting here thinking I should probably book another one. It's been several months, I'm sure. But it is a good chance to get some perspectives and feedback from somebody, I guess, who sees you, who is maybe a little bit external to the working relationships. What would you say are some of the ways that physician leaders can benefit, not just from feedback, but from coaching such as you might provide?
Yeah, well, so often I hear physicians tell me, look, I didn't want to be a leader. I was tapped on the shoulder or it was my turn. And so they end up in this leadership role. And it's a huge undertaking to move from a clinical role to a leadership role. It requires a different skill set. It requires a different mindset. And you have to become really excellent at having those difficult conversations or navigating through tough situations. And, all the while you're working in this really complex system that's changing daily. It's quite uncertain. It's ambiguous, and you're responsible for leading a team through that, through change. You're responsible for setting goals and strategies and having a vision, and all the while trying to achieve results. So it's a big task for leaders, and a lot of times people are quite unprepared. So what coaching offers the physician is a customized, tailored approach to them. I meet them where they are. Some people come in with absolutely no leadership experience or training, and some people have lots and they're wanting to continue to develop themselves. I mean, leadership, it's a lifelong journey. It's not a one and done. Coaching is a wonderful way to really help transition learning that you may have gained from other courses into the workplace, into some practical situations. And so the work that I do with leaders really helps them gain clarity and insight into their impact and performance. And I do this by working one-to-one with the leader. And so I create an environment where they can reflect on their impact. They can reflect on the barriers that might be sabotaging their effectiveness. They can think about, their triggers. And it really helps to have that time and space to reflect. And so, yes, we have a variety of assessments and approaches that we use as coaches, but quite frankly, the foundation of the session is built by co-creating an honest and trusting relationship where that coach is going to ask you questions that really make you stop and wonder they're going to listen and really listen deeply. And they're going to make observations about how they're experiencing you in the moment. Or they may ask you a question about how you reacted to something and give you feedback based on what your response is. So they're there to help you identify your blind spots. They're there to put that mirror up to you and give you feedback that perhaps other people won't give you. The coach is there as a trusted partner. They're not there as your friend. They're there and they have the best interest for you in mind. And so they want you to be successful. And that means telling you things perhaps that you may not want to hear. But the coach will help you through that, and they'll help you identify what competencies are going to be required for you to be a skillful leader. And they'll provide resources and recommendations. I'm always providing books or book summaries or podcasts or, videos. And I find my clients, they're also providing me with resources. So, myself personally, I have a wide range of resources and recommendations to help physicians in their learning. And, I guess the other point I'll make, Lara, is that being a leader can be isolating and lonely. And having that trusted partner to unpack the complexities that come with leading in healthcare can be really helpful to gain new perspective.
So you said that you provide feedback to the leaders that might be hard to hear. How do you find leaders respond to feedback?
Well, when I give the feedback, I make sure that I already have a relationship with them. I'm not giving them the feedback on day one. Although what I will say, my particular style, I love to add a little bit of humor into it. And so, let's just say somebody tells me they're having a really hard time with some of the staff, and they'll give me an example perhaps of what they say. And I'll say, so you're telling me you said it like that? And they'll say, yeah. And we'll both laugh. And I'll say, well, no wonder you're having a problem if you said it like that. Let's try another way. So I like to use humor. And I'll be honest, I really haven't had anybody, walk out or anything like that. They may not like what I've had to say. And sometimes they'll come back and say, you know what, I didn't really like what you said the last time, but I've reflected on it. I've thought about it. And I see, I can see now, or maybe I don't really agree. And that's fine. Part of the role of the coach is to give my observation and say, it sounds like this is happening, or could it be that? And your job is to say yes or no to that. It's all about helping you gain clarity. And so my observation either will be correct or it won't be correct. It's no skin off my back. My job is to help you get clear about what's going on.
Do you think it's different working with physicians compared with other professionals?
Good question. I'm not really sure. And I've worked with physicians, for so many years. And I've also worked with, people outside of the organization and other leadership roles. What I will say about physicians, my experience is the culture is very different for physicians than it is for other leaders. So physicians come from a culture where it's expected that you excel. It's very autonomous. And, failing is often not an option for a physician. And so the culture of the physician is quite different from the culture of, let's say, the administrator, where it's very team-focused and we make decisions together and we collaborate together. And so I think helping physicians see the difference in the culture can often help them understand maybe why their impact is not as they want it to be. If you're my surgeon, yes, I want you to make the decision in the OR. But if we're trying to decide on a policy, I don't need you to make that decision alone. We need to collaborate on that. And so I think, again, that transition from how you think and act as a physician is going to be different with how you think and act as a leader. So having somebody help them see that, I think, is helpful.
And you mentioned that you've been doing this for a number of years now, 25 years, something like that, working with physicians?
I wrote that number and even I was shocked, Lara, but it has been 25 years.
Do you think there's been any change over that period of time in either your approach or the needs of leaders?
Well, I mean, I'm always educating myself. I'm a lifelong learner. From when I started my journey for coaching, I've taken more advanced coaching courses. And what I will say is when I first introduced this in the organization, it was brand new. Nobody was doing coaching in the organization. People didn't quite know what it was. And it was difficult for me to even articulate what it was that I was doing. And what started happening was through my training, I was coaching physicians. I was calling them up and saying, hey, can I practice on you? They were finding value from it. And it really took off through word of mouth, to be honest with you. And so what I would say is, yes, I've been doing this work for over 10 years, I suppose. And people know what coaching is now. They understand it. When you talk about it, they'll say, oh, yeah, I've worked with Lorie, or I've worked with a coach outside the organization. And so I think physicians, they understand the benefit of it now. And it has really taken off, I will say, over the last several years as a way to develop.
So what advice would you give physicians who are considering coaching for themselves?
Well, again, I think if you can do it early, then you should do it as early as you can, because in medicine, you've got various tools and instruments to do your job. But in leadership, you are the instrument. It's you. And the skills that make you an excellent clinician are not necessarily the same skills that are going to make you an excellent leader. Successful leadership really is grounded in who you are. And so, again, if you're not aware of what makes up that inner person, then it's going to be difficult to influence other people. So what I say is the inner game runs the outer game. You have to be really clear about that inner game to have an effective outer game. And so what physicians say they love about coaching the most is the opportunity to take 1 hour every 2 weeks to focus solely on them, what they're struggling with, their challenges, what they need, what they want. And I coach the whole person. So it doesn't always stick to just leadership. Who you are, it impacts all facets of your life. And so if there's things going on in your personal life, you're going to bring that into your leadership. And so we focus on the whole person. And so what I would say is, the benefits of starting coaching early is that it's going to prepare you for when that leadership job does come along. And whether you take a leadership job or not, learning these skills are going to be invaluable just in your general life. How you interact with people, how you build relationships, how you kind of navigate through the organization. Those skills will never go to waste. And so I think starting them early is going to be really important. And, the thing is that when you work with a coach, they're completely unbiased. They really don't know anything about your unique challenges and your work. And so they're not there to tell you what to do. They're not there to give you advice. But what they are there for is to help you figure out what's going to work best for you. I say all the time, you are the expert in your life. I'm just there to help you figure it out.
Sounds a little bit like what I would do as a psychiatrist, although maybe that's a bigger conversation about the similarities and differences between psychotherapy and coaching.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, people will often say, oh, this was so therapeutic. And I'll say, but it's not therapy. This is not therapy. This is really looking at where are you now and where do you need to get to? What are the goals you have for yourself and helping you get there? But, as you know, Lara, people have a lot to unpack. And oftentimes they don't have anyone to do that with. And so having that trusted partner, again, to really unpack that, whether it's a coach or a psychotherapist, it can be really valuable for people.
And it sounds like a very rewarding job for you probably as well.
It is. I love it. I love meeting with people one-on-one. I love forming those relationships with people. And, when somebody will come back and say, I did that presentation or I did that talk and it went so well. And, thank you for helping me with that. It's so gratifying to me. It really is. And yes, I love doing this work.
Thanks for coming to speak with us today, Lorie. Very much appreciate hearing your thoughts about this. And I will right after this podcast is recorded, I'll book a follow-up appointment with you, because I've also found it very helpful meeting with you. It's been a number of years now, I guess, on and off. I've met with you a couple times a year, and yeah, it's been useful. So.
Yeah, you're welcome. And that's common, Lara. That does happen. I'll work with people for, a series of months perhaps, and then I'll hear from them a year later because they want to tune up.
Yeah, exactly. So that's another episode of Leadership PRN. If you have a topic you would like to hear discussed, or if there's someone you'd like me to interview, feel free to reach out to me at lara.hazelton@nshealth.ca or lara.hazelton@dal.ca. Until next time, take care.